So moving forward, I would like to introduce Kelly Cooper, the founder and CEO of the Center for Social Intelligence, to share why the Women's Forest Congress theme of leadership for equity and inclusion in the forest sector and community is so important. So Kelly, I am going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Farrell. I don't know if people can see me or if I'm, there we go. It is a pleasure to be here, and I totally want to echo what Deb said about your energy. It's awesome. Great to have you lead today. So hello, everyone. My name is Kelly Cooper, and as said, I'm the founder and president of the Center for Social Intelligence. It's a pleasure to be here today and to contribute to the thought leadership on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to jump right in by saying I believe it is by working with leaders of any organization that we can truly make a difference on equity and inclusion. And as Deb mentioned, the majority of these leaders are male. By engaging them in a way that is more comfortable to them in economic terms is an effective means to bringing them to the table. That is not to say the social issues are not important, but they have been stated for decades and we've seen very little traction. Through this presentation, I will stress the importance of the issue by linking the economics with the social benefits of DEI. I'll then talk about the approach I've taken with leaders, including some highlights of tools I've developed to move people forward from talk to action, specifically in the forest sector. Okay, let's get to the economics here. I learned that by investing in your people, by diversifying your talent pool, you are twice as likely to meet or exceed financial targets, 3 times more likely to be high performing, 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile, and 8 times more likely to achieve better business outcomes. This happens because the more diversity of perspectives you have on a given product, service, or idea, the stronger the outcome. Also, your reach to new audiences is amplified by having diverse team members who know how best to engage these audiences. Beyond the economic reasons for taking action are, of course, the social benefits. And what I mean by this is the social benefits that everyone, including men, can accrue from accepting policies and initiatives regarding diversity and inclusion. Explaining that parental leave policies apply to them too, not just for women, is an important takeaway message. That they are able to go to their kids' events if required during the day without that putting into question their commitment to their careers. Work-life balance policies are often considered to favor women, when in fact they apply to men too. And there's less pressure on them to be the breadwinner. This stress pushes them to work weekends and evenings and doesn't allow them to spend as much time with family. This level of stress is said to be one of the factors behind the death gap between the two genders and can create serious mental health issues too. When they understand that diversity and inclusion policies and programs help them lead healthier lives too, there is a quiet recognition that they need to be team players on this issue. Creating social cohesion for men to be with their families opens up a whole new level of healthy family shaping. Kids need their dads to be role models in the home to help course correct the stereotypes that continue to be pervasive in our society. It's important we create a safe space for men to step confidently into these roles, to accept the idea that they are valued for the respectful, engaged role models they are or can be on the home front, and to assure that they are not judged harshly by their male peers for doing so. Explaining these economic and social benefits to men turns this conversation from being viewed as a women's issue to realizing it's an everybody's issue. And that is exactly what I talk about to truly achieve gender equality. And I started to see that empowering leaders with the knowledge of these benefits was key to having them shift the workplace culture to be more accepting of women and other represented groups. Because if the leaders want to make it happen, it will happen. So using a change management lens, I set out to engage leaders to create greater awareness and understanding of why they should take action, as well as the cost of inaction. Articulating the value proposition so as to engage them in a language that they could relate to was key. I go into this at great length in my book, Lead the Change, the Competitive Advantage of Gender Diversity and Inclusion, so that it's clear by the end of reading it, if you're absent on this issue, by default, you're making a poor business decision. The book also provides a blueprint for how to take action. This approach not only raises awareness on the issue in terms that cannot be ignored, but also creates the desire to make a change. Once leaders grasp this notion, they want to know the tools and skills required to create inclusive workplace cultures. So my work moved from the why this is important to do to how to do it, so that leaders can operate with confidence. No leader wants to stick their neck out on this or any issue if they can't be sure they will succeed. I recently set out about developing new tools on the how-tos, how to overcome diversity and inclusion, or sorry, how to overcome resistance to diversity and inclusion, how to create an inclusive workplace culture, and how to be an effective ally for women and all other underrepresented groups. These tools guide leaders to shift the workplace culture to be more accepting of implementing equity measures, attracting diverse groups of people, and creating inclusive cultures. For example, understanding the psychology behind resistance, be it a lack of awareness, the impact on their job, an organization's past performance with doing anything on this at all, or a lack of visible support and commitment from executives. Whatever it is, being prepared for resistance and knowing why people push back allows you to respond in ways that turn people around from resisting to accepting diversity in the workplace. You can then implement strategic actions to address it. With learning how to create an inclusive workplace culture, for example, it's important to know the role leaders play in traditional leadership versus inclusive leadership. With traditional leadership, the role of the leader is to create and enforce rules and regulations, take control and solve problems with a focus on those similar to themselves, holding tight to the me, us, and them approach to relationships. Whereas with inclusive leadership, the role of the leader is to question dominant and normative practices. They operate with courage and focus on fairness, equality, and civil dissent. Inclusive leaders create a holding space for followers to solve problems and focus on we and all. And they value and pursue diversity and multiple viewpoints. And finally, tools and skills development on how to be an ally for women and underrepresented groups. My research led me to develop a 10-step ally journey that starts with recognizing I have a role to play and moves through acknowledging the old me, reflecting on that and coming to terms and accepting that as part of the past. And then moves forward to pledging a commitment that leverages power and privilege to do things differently, to onboard new thinking, and with this new knowledge, now operating meaningfully as an ally. As you move to the end of the ally journey, you are becoming a role model and ultimately a lifetime advocate. These how-to tools provide both executives and employees with insights and skills to courageously be the change, make the change they wish to see in the organization. Beyond working with individual organizations, I could also see the benefit of working across the whole of the sector on this issue. And so I embarked on a sector-wide initiative aimed at increasing women and underrepresented groups and senior roles and technical positions. Let me tell you what has transpired in the forest sector. I sought out a partnership with the Canadian Institute of Forestry, and together we identified leaders in the public, private, not-for-profit, academia, and Indigenous groups to ensure there was representation across the whole of the sector. Collectively, we identified a new vision for the sector, a vision that recognizes that having a diverse and inclusive workforce provides the foundation for a thriving forest sector and healthy communities. We created key principles for the sector focused on helping women and other underrepresented groups by promoting the creation of effective policies on recruitment and retention, promoting gender balance at all levels, promoting safety, both physical and psychological safety and well-being for all workers, promoting the development of procurement policies along the supply chain, among other things. We also identified a framework of action, including 3 main pillars of activity, focused on 1, building the evidence base to gather the baseline data, 2, to foster an inclusive culture, focused on developing tools to help the sector shift their workplace culture, and 3, repositioning the sector so it is more welcoming to women and all underrepresented groups. We branded the initiative Free to Grow in Forestry. This phrase is used in the forest sector when the forest is no longer needing any human intervention to restore it. In our context, the phrase is used to mean each and every person is free to grow in their career in the forest sector. You can find out more about this initiative on all social media channels. We also have a website. Working collaboratively across the sector unites our efforts toward one common goal, creating strength from the sum being greater than the parts. I believe this approach has been a key factor behind shifting the workplace culture in the forest sector because there's no room for rolling things back. Everyone is in lockstep on why this needs to happen, what needs to be done, and how to go about it. The next generation of new hires want to work for progressive organizations that align business objectives with social priorities. And gender diversity and inclusion is one of those social priorities. This presents a great opportunity for the industry to attract the best and brightest talent by embracing diversity and inclusion, and by doing so, being more innovative, high performing, and better able to compete in a global market. Let me wrap up by saying I think there is tremendous momentum here with the Women's Forest Congress and all the networks that each and every one of you have to lead the change in your own spheres of influence. Thanks for your time today, and I hope to meet many of you in person at future events.
Kelly, thank you so much for your wise words, and words that are definitely needed to put into action. And so we appreciate the work that you are doing.